So I'm delighted to welcome back Kalpesh in the studio. Hi, Kalpesh. How are you?
Hello, Ian. Very good. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you on the
Welcome back.
program again.
It's great to be here. It feels like a regular occurrence, and I'm loving it.
Well, listen, this is, as you know, it's a precursor to a discussion panel we're going to be doing later on in October, and that is about inverting the hiring pyramid. But it's also about the impact of AI. And I know you're one of these guys. You're constantly in the trenches, looking around the talent industry, understand what's happening. Making new connections between organizations and obviously working with a lot of blue chips as well. So tell me, in your situation, what you've experienced in this last sort of 12 months, Kalpesh, where we've got this kind of AI halo going on, what are you finding out? What are you seeing at the moment?
I'll start off by saying there is not one answer to this problem, except for this one statement. The one statement is doing nothing is not an option.
Yeah.
So I think where a lot of the senior HR leaders I talk to, when they're talking about twofolds, it's either how do you hire talent in, how do you retain talent, and also how do you build the alumni when talent leaves, is understanding how do you use existing structures, whether it's organisational structures, whether it's employment contracts, whether it's the job specs, and link that through to new technologies coming to market. And you and I, we've had this conversation about AI quite a lot and automation, etc. But how do you use the evolving technology landscape to make better hiring decisions, retain your employees to do more meaningful work, but also if people choose to leave your organisation because the average tenure is now dropping down, and we're going to start seeing the concept of the boomerang is going to be a bigger play. How do you ensure you cover all of those elements using your existing toolkit you have today, but augment it with new technology coming in?
Right. Got it. And so, I mean, who's getting most impacted by this, Kalpesh? Is it the actual end user organizations themselves, or is it the staffing agencies? Is it the MSPs? Is it the tech companies? Where are you seeing the point of impact?
So I think the absolute value is coming from the end customer, the enterprise, because if you think about the biggest pressure is whether you're a 100-person company or a 10,000-person company, it's how do you make the right decisions to manage your employees, and also respecting the legislation around things like the EU AI Act and the New York Compliance Act, etc. But that is then rippling right the way through the ecosystem, the supply chain, through MSP, through the vendors, through to the staffing agencies, through to the job boards, because everyone's now having to find different ways of attracting talent that doesn't exist today.
Yeah. And you when you started that conversation off there, you were saying, there's not one answer to the AI problem. Is it a problem?
I think it is. It's a misunderstanding. The whole thing about is AI is it's coming, right? It's here. It's not coming at you. It's here in some way, shape, or form. And the reason why I call it a problem is because we have a challenging situation in the world at the moment of markets are slowing down in some places. There's a slowdown in economies. People are trying to make their quotas and their numbers. They're trying to balance their bottom lines. CFOs are all about how do you manage your workforce, etc. The trade-off being, though, is how do you then bring in AI to make some of those disruptions and some of those benefits, and in terms of productivity savings. Let's not get away from. I think if you've been following in the last couple of weeks, Klarna put a statement out that they have replaced about 700 headcount by using AI more in the workplace. So some of those jobs that actually they're being displaced because you can use technology. But there's also simple things like, and if you go back a couple of years ago, Ian, we were talking about, prompt engineers, the new buzzword. Every company's going to need prompt engineers. Well, the reality is you probably need someone who understands prompt engineering in some way. But what we need to do is teach people how to build prompts in their jobs to become more valuable. So the reason why I say AI is a problem is because we haven't fully worked out how to utilize it and understand it. And there's that fear of displacement or actually causing the wrong outcomes.
Yeah. And is this leading to sort of P&L outcomes? We've seen changes in profit and loss because of AI, do you think?
I think that there is. I mean, companies are looking at, and if I go back 20 plus years ago, the advent of the internet, when it really became mainstream, it became a different channel.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of what we're seeing now is that evolutionary aspect of what we're doing with, if you look at the future of work or the World Economic Forum reports, the new jobs that are going to be coming in, the jobs that will be disappearing, and it's just another phase of the industrial revolution that we're going through. But I think it's coming back down to the P&L has to win because everyone needs to satisfy a shareholder somewhere or a stakeholder. But it's understanding that, again, it's like, well, if I need to invest $1 million, what's my return on $1 million?
Yeah. So tell me, what are your thoughts then about the future of the staffing firm in all of this?
So, and for those of you that know me well, I love staffing, and I'm unashamedly, I think recruiters have a very, very strong purpose and mission in our society. But I think, speaking as a recruiter, from background, I think there's an evolution coming, right? We've been talking a lot about curated talent pools or talent networks. We've been talking about direct hiring, direct sourcing, as opposed to having a static database with 100,000 candidates on there. Recruiters can actually add so much value moving forwards. And I think you and I have discussed this before, and there is the contingent one-time revenue recruiter who still has a value in the world we're in today. I need this resource, just come get it for me, then go away again. Through to that recruitment partner or talent partner that is curating and building that ongoing network of talent ready, who can do a job today if I give you a requirement, who can do a job in 4 weeks because I'm going to have this demand, but you're building that infrastructure, that network for me, through to actually, I think in 6 months' time, we're retooling our business completely. I'm going to need a whole different set of skills. Can you help me identify, curate, nurture that talent so I've got them in my wheelhouse as my talent pool as well? So I think recruiters are not going away, and if I just use the UK as an example, the UK has circa 200,000 people directly employed in recruitment. That number's not going to go down anytime soon. The USA has circa 20,000 recruitment companies. So, we have an industry of people in that understand inherently how to find and to attract talent. If I was an enterprise or an MSP, I would be building partnerships with the right ones, because some of them are not going to be fit for purpose to do this. But how do I get them as an extension to building out my curated talent networks?
Yeah, so I think if I take the devil advocate role just for a minute, Kalpesh, when we're talking about sort of recruiters, is I think a lot of business leaders kind of see a recruiter as somebody that kind of chases the ambulance, finds somebody, gets paid for it, and runs off. How do you see the role of a recruiter?
So I think that there is a small percentage that do that, as a recruitment industry. Part of the challenge we've got here, and I feel for recruiters on this one, because how you are paid and incentivized is, here's a job spec, just fill it. Here's a need, just fill it. So I think that ambulance chaser tag is probably unfair in many ways, because recruiters are doing what clients are asking them to do. Can you solve this problem for me? Deliver the service, great, now you can go. As we start building partnerships and relationships and building stronger ties, and everyone's got a favourite recruiter. It always happens. I've got a favourite recruiter I go to for if I was looking for a job or etc. But you're going to build that relationship, and I think for recruiters, you need to understand. Look, there is that one-time revenue element. That's a percentage of the market. But if you really want a bigger share of market and make more sustainable revenue, you are going to have to adapt your business model.
Yeah. And so who are going to be the winners and losers in all of this, do you think, in the next sort of 5 years, with the changes that are taking place, not just in the use of AI, but also how it's transforming business models?
So I think the MSPs that we traditionally talk about are going to have to evolve, because I think how they've traditionally managed spend, managed recruitment, there's going to be more expectation on additional services that they can offer. So, being just a vendor of technology on one side of here's how you manage your people is one element, but the service element of how do you manage your network of talent or active and passive talent is one element. I think the next level down in terms of winners on this is going to be those organisations that build specialist talent pools. So one of the organisations I'm talking to is building a talent pool of military professionals, right? Where actually there's no direct benefit today, but over time, there's another talent pool you can go after. We were talking about earlier on about a lady who is in our community that you and I both know. She's building a network of software engineers, but that are female. So that's another focused talent pool where she's offering a service to those software engineers who want jobs. How do you make that transition? But also for corporates to say, well, I can't find any more software engineers. Well, yeah, they're not on the job boards. They're not on LinkedIn. They're not there. But maybe you want to come and talk to this organisation that's got a network that you haven't tapped into yet. So I think there's those elements. And then the final part is, look, every recruiter I speak to at the moment is having to think about how do I move away from the Rolodex or that one relationship I've got with a client? How do I now start using AI or some form of automation in my ATS and my recruitment process to be able to offer more value adds to my clients, to in many ways to justify my fee?
Yeah. Kalpesh, let me just take a step back, because just for the audience's sake, I did mention the point inverting the hiring pyramid, but of course some people might say, I don't get what that is. So just to confirm that, really what we're talking about is that organizations are increasingly using social media, software tools, job portals online, and looking to attract their audiences to their brand, to their employer brand, before they need the talent, so that they've curated that talent potentially into blobs of talent pools, so that they can then sort of, if you like, when they get a requirement, they can literally call on those people that they've already been in touch with, who are interested in their brand. But equally, I think the other part of that for employers is that they have the opportunity then to offer incentives for people to go through their pre-flighting, their onboarding, their checks, and their fit requirements before they have to start going through that process. So theoretically, that all works. You get good people come to you directly. You don't have to pay the agency, allegedly. Although then we get to this point, well, who owns the talent pools? Who looks after the talent pools? So how do you see that change is going to work and is going to happen? And if you do, how do you see it happening?
So I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say why. The reason why I say no is to manage a talent pool is a full-time job. Actually, it's a full-time job for a team. And I have my sympathy goes out to the talent acquisition folks who work for corporates. They have a double-edged sword of, one conversation is, can you keep our talent pool and our ATS of whatever the system is they use active and fresh with all the talent on there? But also, can you fill all these requirements that are coming through? So I'll go back to my original point. I think if you're a corporate, you need an integrated talent strategy. And, we talk about inverting the pyramid, right? You are always going to have that, I need talent today that isn't ready. How do I go and get that? So, I'll go back to good recruitment agencies are going to continue succeeding and are going to not. Yeah. And now I think corporates need to think about how do you change that mindset of them being a necessary evil to their value-added partner. So that's the first page of it. The second stage of it is, if I was any big PLC out there or big fortune organisation, I would not take on the burden of trying to keep my talent pool up to speed. I would partner with someone whose full-time job is to do that. That way, the corporate and the talent acquisition professionals and the HR teams can focus on what they need to do to manage BAU and the live requirements and the live vacancies and add value to the employees. So I think my point of reason why I was so bold about saying no, we are going to shift from where we were, but the percentage shift and how far we go will depend on the actual model that companies choose to implement over time.
Yeah. So tell me, we're running out of time as usual because we always end up chatting for too long. But let me just try and get down to the lumps of this. I'm going to ask you the question for each of the groups in terms of, the talent staffing agencies. What is your guidance to them right now? Where do they go next on this?
Be clear on your proposition. Be clear on what you want to be famous for, and start building your talent pools yourself.
Right. If you're an MSP, what would your suggestion be?
Be clear on the contracts you sign up about what the expectations of your customers are. start thinking about your service proposition now. And most of these MSPs are doing this here and already, where it's no longer just about managing agencies and managing suppliers. There's more to it. So what additional services can you offer to manage a talent pipeline, to nurture it, etc.? And think about the partners you need to engage with to be able to deliver that service.
Yeah. And finally, what about the talent leaders themselves?
So I think for the talent leaders, I'd go back and say, go back to a point I made a couple of minutes ago, was plan ahead. Right, I appreciate we're in an economy at the moment where it's not so easy, and that things are changing quite regularly. But work with your stakeholders in the business. Try and get that 18-month vision of where do you need to get to, what skills are you going to need, what skills are becoming redundant, who do you need to train? And look, one of the conversations you and I had probably about 2 or 3 of these videos ago, right, is actually hiring is one strategy. Cross-training people and cross-skilling and upskilling in your business is another strategy. So going back to, if you're the chief people officer, focus on what you can do to optimize and maximize your workforce you have today, and then work with partners to bring that talent, the network in externally.
Understood. Kalpesh, we're out of time. Listen, thanks very much for that. As always, I will see you on the 17th of October, where we'll be talking about inverting the hiring pyramid with a really great bunch of people, including Kalpesh. If you want to hear more from Kalpesh, then obviously you can reach out to him. We've got the links below. But equally, if not, then hear some more from him on the 17th. Kalpesh, thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks, Ian. See you soon.